Yeah, that was a little clip to go into what I'm about to go into. Black slave owners and white slaves in America. This is something that's blacked out. Like an information blackout, so to speak. Get right into it. Robert M. Grooms in the Johnson family, African-American owners of white and black slaves, has revealed the fact that blacks owned white slaves in America. He also notes that a legal precedent for lifelong slavery in America was established by a black slave owner with regard to one of his black slaves. And it's interesting to note that the first legal slave owner in what would eventually become the U.S. was a black man named Anthony Johnson. He came to America as an indentured servant from Angola, arriving in, he got here in 1620 in the colony of Virginia. And I showed that skit because people will use that and say, they'll look at that behavior and say, oh, well, it's because of slavery they're acting like that. Okay, we'll go into it. And it's a lot of history here. On April 10th, 1606, the Virginia Company of London was granted a royal charter by King James I, awarding it a large tract of land in present-day Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland. And speaking of King James, we're going to get into some deep information about King James too at a future time. On May 13th, 1607, three small ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, arrived at Cape Henry, sailed up the James River, and landed at present-day Jamestown, following a 131-day voyage. In August 1619, more than a year before the landing of the ship Mayflower, a captured Dutch man of war with a Spanish captain named Jope and an English pilot named Marmaduke anchored in the James River near Jamestown. On board were 20 and odd men and women of African descent. The Virginia colony was in need of laborers, while the captain and his crew were in need of supplies. A bargain was struck, and 20 Negroes, the first of their race in the colonies, were sold to the colonists. Fresh food and water was brought aboard, and the ship sailed away. According to the African-American chairman of President William Clinton's Commission on Race, Duke University professor John Hope Franklin, these newcomers, who happened to be black, were simply more indentured servants. They were listed in the census counts of 1623 and 1624 as late as 1651. Negroes whose period of service had expired were also being assigned land, much the same way that it was being assigned to whites who had completed their indenture. During the first half century of existence, Virginia had many Negroes as servants, and the record reveals an increasing number of free Negroes. Franklin wrongly designated the first 20 Negroes in the colonies as indentured servants. Instead of redemptioners, indentured servants, in return for paying the cost of their passage to the New World, entered into a written contract while still in Europe to work for a specified owner for a specified number of years under determined conditions. The length of the bound servitude, be it an extendable set number of years, has no bearing on whether an individual is deemed a slave. The vast majority of whites and all blacks arrived in the colonies as redemptioners. They were generally of the underclass, including orphans, who were rounded up, often involuntarily, while still in their native country and transported to the New World. Whites were frequently transported in the same ships that were used for Africans. Your cult leaders won't tell you that. One redemptioner who came to America in 1750 recalled his trip with horror. To keep from starving, we had to eat rats and mice. We paid from 8 pence to 2 shillings for a mouse 4 pence for a quart of water. Okay? Gottlieb Mittelberger in Journey to Pennsylvania recorded in 1750 that the sale of human beings at the market on board the ship is carried on thus. Every day, Englishmen, Dutchmen, and High German people come from the city of Philadelphia and other places, in part from a great distance, say 20, 30, or 40 hours away, and go on board the newly arrived ship that has brought and offers for sale passengers from Europe, and select among the healthy persons such as they deem suitable for their business. White and black servants join the same households, working, eating, sleeping, and running away together. I'm going to repeat that. White and black servants join the same households, working, eating, sleeping, and running away together. Their terms of service could be extended for a large number of minor offenses, including marrying or having children without permission. As a result of extensions, many white redemptionists serve their whole life as a servant, or serve their entire lives as servants. A child born to a female redemptioner could become the property of her owner and her mother's term extended. For example, George Cummins had the indenture of his white servant woman named Christian Finney extended by a year, and her child bound for 31 years by order of the Carteret County Court on December 7, 1736. When she applied to the court for her freedom on June 9, 1744, the court ruled that she served another 5 months to pay for the cost incurred by her owner to bring the earlier action. When she applied again 6 months later, she was ordered to serve an additional year for having a mulatto child in the time of her servitude. Before 1643, servants without indentures generally became free men after a term of service varying from 2 to 8 years. After 1643, the terms of servants brought into the colony without indentures or covenants to testify to their agreement were fixed at 4 to 7 years, the period varying somewhat with the age of the servant. It was the custom, and later the law, that a redemptioner, white or black, received from his master, at the time of his discharge, a certain amount of property called freedom dues. In 1660, Virginia custom was to give each new free man 3 barrels of corn and a suit of clothes. In 1651, Anthony Johnson, a Negro, was given 250 acres as head rights for purchasing 5 incoming white redemptioners. Okay? In 1652, John Johnson, Anthony Johnson's eldest son, purchased 11 incoming white males and females and received 550 acres adjacent to his father. There were a number of additional Virginia land patents representing grants to free blacks of from 50 to 550 acres for purchasing white redemptionists. For example, on April 18, 1667, Emmanuel Cabot received 50 acres in James City County, and in 1668, 50 acres were deeded to John Harris of Queens Creek. Francis Payne paid for his freedom in 1650 by purchasing 3 incoming whites for his master's use. Okay? Blacks and Indians. Some more facts for you. Blacks and Indians came to own and abuse whites in Virginia in such large numbers that in 1670, the House of Burgesses, or legislature, proclaimed that no Negro or Indian, though baptized and enjoyed their own freedom, shall be capable of any purchase of Christians. Well, we know the code word for Christian is white. Well, the code word for white is Christian, either or. But yet, not debarred from buying any of their own nation. Okay? And as I said, Christian was a euphemism of the period for Caucasian or white. These are facts that you will not hear. You won't hear this from your cult leaders. They don't even know this information. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm special or anything, but these guys claim to be the workers of God. False prophets. Oh, and in case you didn't know, over 70% of the freed slaves, the ones that were freed by their masters, the black slaves, as I've said, were black women. And by the way, they were also some of the most successful. Okay? For example, Mary Matoya, aka Coin, established an independent plantation in Louisiana. And she built her wealth by purchasing slaves and additional acreage. Her family became the largest black slave holding family in American history, with holdings of over 20,000 acres in land, 20,000 acres of land and 500 slaves. This is the real history of slavery right here. In 1830, the city of New York had 8 black slave owners who owned 17 slaves. Do your research. You've been lied to. And I'm out.